So that's my little project done. I've sent it, and you can see the uncut send video here, put a link to it. But since this was my first outdoor project, I wanted to actually look through, my whole process, all the sessions I did, and kind of critique it, see where I went wrong, see what I could do to improve it, and basically share that with you and hope, it'll be somewhat useful. Yeah, so here we go. And so the first session, there's kind of no issues here basically. Playing around with the moves, enjoying it, wasn't trying to be super strategic, and that was pretty much session 1 for this one. And so for session 2, I came back and I really wanted to do this problem basically. The moves I tried last time seemed good, I liked them, they flowed, and it's, it was considered like a classic in Edinburgh, so I was really looking forward to sending it now. And here's where things, I think, could be improved with a second session. My first attempt was kind of wasted because I forgot the beater for the first part and was just planning ahead, and was thinking ahead for that middle part. So there's kind of no excuse for this because I filmed every attempt, so I had the footage from last time. I could have taken 1 minute out and just looked through it and just saw, okay, oh yeah, just refresh my memory. This is what I did last time, this is what worked, this is what didn't, so avoid that. But yeah, I didn't do this. Instead, I just jumped on, and even if I hadn't filmed it, I should have just taken time out to visualise the best sequence, go back into my memories, think about what was I did, what worked. Yeah, so either use your memories or watch a film of yourself doing it. But instead, wasting energy hanging there trying to work it out, even though I had already worked out the last session. So not so smart, and that can definitely be something I can improve here. So the next sequence, I actually get quite good after that first mistake. The next sequence is quite smooth, it seems to work quite well, so I'm pleased with that. But the next part, I hadn't planned well, and kind of get stuck here, which is not too bad because I didn't really plan exactly for that part, so that's fine. But the mistake I did make was I didn't really look around that section for all the hold options. Really should look through it in as much detail as possible and see all the different options for footholds, handholds, what's maybe possible, what's definitely possible, just so you have an idea of when you, even if you can't work out the perfect sequence from the ground, at least when you get on there, you know the options in your head. So there's a hold out there, there's a hold down here, maybe try that. So that's why I was stumped when I got to that part, and that's why I didn't realise, there's actually a hold here which unlocked a sequence, and you don't really want to get to that point where you struggle trying to work it out, and you just realise, oh, that's there, and that just unlocks it and makes it so simple. Try and avoid that. That would be my next tip and a lesson I learned. And for the rest of the session, it goes quite well basically. I actually get pretty much to the end, there's only a few moves remaining, and that was session 2. Now with session 3, I actually make a mistake before even starting the problem, and that was actually deciding to climb when I felt weak. Actually saying that's perfectly fine. It's just in my head, I still had the firm expectation that I would actually send this. So even though I wasn't feeling strong, it was super windy and cold that day, I hadn't even worked at the last few moves, but still somehow, in my head, I thought, I'm going to send it today. And this proved to be a big mistake and kind of turned the whole session into a mental battle with lots of disappointment, frustration, definitely felt that. So the lesson here I think is, because I wasn't feeling strong, my focus should have shifted way away from trying to send it or expecting to send it. Instead I should have just decided, right, I'm going to play around, try out different betas, different sequences, see what works, what doesn't, and definitely try and focus on that end sequence, because that was kind of the only gap, which didn't know what to do when I got there. And then when that's worked out, I can come back when I'm feeling fresh again and give it a proper go. And this was probably my biggest mistake from the whole, doing this project start to finish, was this, session 3, just doing it when I'm weak, just total wrong approach, and definitely avoid that in the future. And for this session, I came in with much lower expectations, bringing them back down to reality, which, is a good thing. And my focus was really just to work through the problem at a good pace, focusing on doing each move and not think too far ahead this time. And the problem here was I didn't have the sequences dialed as I thought, which kind of messed up my first attempt. So before starting, I really should have visualised the sequence. And I think with visualising the sequence, you really need to visualise it as if you are on the climb, you know, like a first person perspective, looking out from your own eyes as if you're on the rock. And so what I do is try and actually close my eyes and remember, put myself back into the situation of doing those moves, seeing those moves as if I was on the rock, looking up and down at the holds. When you're like on the ground, just looking at the problem from the ground up and moving your arms kind of mimic, you know, the movements you would do. To me, that's just not detailed enough. You're not going to recall enough detail doing it that way. It's useful, obviously, if you haven't did the problem before. You've got no memories of it, you've no details to recall. But once you've actually did the moves, I think you need to actually close your eyes and visualise it, just to bring up those details. And so then when you're actually on the climb again, on the problem, those memories and what you visualise kind of blend into reality, and it feels familiar, and you can probably send it much more smoothly. And so I didn't do this, and I messed up the first try, but that was kind of the only critique really I had for this session, was the lack of visualisation there. And this session is basically what I think session 3 should have been. At the end of session 2, I went through start to almost to finish, just the last few moves needed to be worked out. But obviously with my mistakes for session 3 and 4, I just kept trying each time from the start to the end, even though it hadn't worked out the end sequence, and so that wasted a lot of energy, burned through a lot of tries there, so it wasn't basically very efficient, which would be my critique here. I finally realised this session 5 that I've only got 2 moves or a couple moves to do. I should really try and work just those 2 moves out before always starting it from the start. And so either start at the end and work backwards, or find some kind of shortcut as close as possible to the sequence you're trying to work out. This is like kind of obvious looking back. I do this all the time in the gym, you know, climb up an easier problem just to get to those moves that you're trying to work on. But somehow I think because it was a traverse, it somehow felt different. The bigger thing was there's no obvious easy way up, and so it did take till session 5 for me to actually realise you need to, you know, find a shortcut up here, not waste so much energy. So eventually I do find that shortcut, and literally within a few tries I had the end sequence worked out, so definitely a good strategy to use. So everything's now been worked out. I just need to link it all together. So for session 6, beforehand I rested well, didn't come back to try the climb until I felt, you know, fresh or fully recovered. Did my warm up and I sent it first go, which, you know, good, felt good, definitely just for everything to come together. And yes, so these are the main points I think I learned from this process. So hopefully you found this useful. Thank you for watching. What's my next project going to be?